We get the question about how are my medical bills going to be paid every day. That's probably the most frequent question we receive. And the truth is, it's more complicated than you might expect, because the reality is people think that the at-fault driver's automobile insurance carrier will pay the medical bills as you go. That's not what happens. So what occurs is, first of all, it depends on the type of insurance you have. Do you have what we call medical payments coverage through your own insurance? If you do, that will be the first line of payment. Your medical payments coverage covers medical expenses no matter who was at fault, whether it was your fault or someone else's fault, up to a certain amount. Usually it's in the $5,000 range, can be as high as $25,000. And then after you exhaust your medical payments coverage, then we want to look to your health insurance coverage. So if you have health insurance, whether it's Medicaid, Medicare, could be private insurance, Aetna, Blue Cross Blue Shield, we want your health insurance coverage to pay those medical bills as we go. Now, the at-fault driver's insurance will pay the expenses, but they pay that at the end of the case. So at the end of the case, when the case is settled, the at-fault driver's insurance will pay your pain and your suffering, your lost wages, and your medical expenses. But that could be 3, 4, 5, 6 months, even longer at times. So the healthcare providers, they don't want to wait until the end of the case. And so we want them to be paid up front. We don't want the client to be sent to collections or have a collections person calling them time and time again. Now, there are occasions when the client does not have health insurance, and that happens. And so at that point, we look to do a letter of protection. A letter of protection is a letter from us to the doctor, to the hospital, to the physical therapist, whoever it may be, and it is a promise to pay. Once the case is settled, we will pay the medical expenses out of the settlement, and we ask that the healthcare provider not bill the client and not send them to collections. Now, that's optional, so the healthcare providers aren't required to take the letter of protections. Some do, some don't. So if they'll accept the letter of protection, that's the other way. We try to hold off the medical providers until the case is settled. If they will not accept the letter of protection, then we encourage the client to enter into some sort of an agreement where you pay a little bit as you go. Just a minimum payment to keep the healthcare providers at bay until the case is settled. And so the at-fault driver's insurance carrier will pay the bills, but it'll be at the end of the case. It'll be for your pain and suffering, your lost wages, your medical expenses. And then once the case is settled, we'll go back to your health insurance carrier and we'll pay them back. We'll go back to your medical payments coverage. We'll pay them back. All that will come out of the settlement once the case is done. But we want the client's medical expenses to be taken care of up front so they get the proper care, the healthcare providers get paid, and nobody is sent to collections. And that's how that's done.